Once upon a time in India, before there were cell phones or television, there lived a man called Mahatma Gandhi. He was the leader of India during its fight for independence from the British Empire. Now, people all over the world know Mahatma Gandhi as a symbol of truth and non-violent resistance. He showed the world that one man can make a difference. So let's take a journey through time and explore how this ordinary man became an extraordinary leader. It all started many years ago. Let's rewind back to the beginning. This is the first scene of our animation. Text overlay on screen. Can a man defeat an empire without firing a bullet? Can silence, fasting, and cloth topple centuries of rule? This is the story of a man who proved it's possible. A man who could move mountains yet never left his homeland. A man whose weapon was not violence but truth. This is the story of Mohandas K. Gandhi. In the bustling city of Porbandar in western India in the year 1869, a baby boy was born. Little did everyone know that this baby would grow up to be known as Mahatma, which means great soul. Mohandas' childhood was like any other. He played games, he went to school, and he listened to his parents tell ancient stories. But even as a child, something about Mohandas was different. He had a deep sense of justice, and he hated seeing people being treated unfairly. At age 13, Mohandas decided to follow a stricter form of religious practice. He studied ancient texts and learned about nonviolence, which meant not causing harm to anyone. As a young man, Mohandas went to study law at college. But when he returned home, he couldn't find any clients. No one wanted his help. He felt helpless watching people get mistreated and unable to do anything about it. It broke his heart. So he decided to leave India. He traveled far away to South Africa, where people of Indian descent were also struggling for their rights. When he arrived, he realized that although he was brown, the white people around him treated him worse than if he'd been black. He faced discrimination and segregation just because of his skin color. One day, he was thrown off a train simply because he dared to ride in a first-class carriage. This made Mohandas angry. He knew he had to do something to fight for justice. And here we come to the second scene of our animation. Hog text overlay on screen. When injustice becomes your daily bread, what would you do? After experiencing racism himself, Mohandas understood the pain of being judged by the color of his skin rather than the content of his character. He asked himself why he should accept being treated like this. Why should he obey laws that seemed unfair to him? His answer was a turning point. He would resist these laws with all his might, not through violence, but with something much more powerful, truth. As news of the injustices faced by Indians in South Africa spread, people began to unite and resist. They refused to comply with unjust laws, stood up against those who tried to mistreat them, and formed groups to support each other. People were scared at first, but they knew they couldn't keep living like this forever. So they joined Mohandas and fought back against the system. When Mohandas turned 30, he met a spiritual leader named Gopal Krishna Gokhale. Gokhale helped Mohandas understand that everyone can be agents of change and inspired him to become a full-time activist. This gave Mohandas the courage he needed to take the next step. He started a newspaper called Indian Opinion to speak out against the racism faced by Indians. In 1906, he led a protest march against racial segregation in Durban. Even though the march was initially unsuccessful, it set the stage for future struggles. Over the next few years, things got tough. There were riots between Indians and white South Africans. To protect the community, Mohandas encouraged Indians to resist arrest. If they resisted, they wouldn't be taken to normal jails, but to special jails designed for activists like them. Many people didn't agree with this idea. They thought that fighting against the government was risky and dangerous, but still, many activists followed Mohandas' advice and refused to cooperate with the authorities. Then came the turning point in 1913, when the government passed a new law requiring all Indians to carry passes with them at all times. This was too much. Mohandas led a campaign of civil disobedience, encouraging people to defy the law. Activists organized mass meetings and peaceful protests, and Mohandas wrote articles explaining why the past laws were wrong. The movement grew, attracting people from all over the country. Thousands of Indians defied the laws, refused to carry passes, and went out without them. The result was shocking. Instead of arresting everyone, the police only took Mohandas into custody. The government didn't want to scare people away, so they let everyone else go with warnings. And now it's time for the third scene of our animation. Text overlay on screen: Gandhi vs. the pass laws. The night before his arrest, Mohandas wrote a letter to the magistrate who would decide his fate. The letter was unlike anything the magistrate had ever read. Mohandas wasn't begging for mercy or trying to convince the judge he was innocent. Instead, he calmly explained why he broke the law. He said that obeying an unjust law would make him a traitor to his own soul. He wasn't afraid of going to jail, and instead of pleading guilty, he pleaded not guilty. His trial lasted only 15 minutes. The magistrate asked why he broke the law. Mohandas replied that he broke the law because it was unjust. The magistrate looked at him for a moment, then gave his verdict. He found Mohandas guilty and sentenced him to 2 months in prison. When the news of Mohandas' arrest reached the public, thousands of people began to protest. The government couldn't handle the growing anger, so they released Mohandas after only 2 weeks. From that day on, Mohandas became known as Mahatma, meaning great soul. Everyone saw how bravely he stood up for justice and equality. But life was not always easy. Sometimes Mohandas had to defend himself against attacks from extremists, but he remained calm and nonviolent, showing everyone that this is the way forward. Eventually, the government agreed to abolish the unjust laws. After winning this victory, Mohandas continued working for justice in South Africa until 1914. But his heart was calling him home. He missed his family and friends and wanted to help India gain independence from the British Empire. And here comes the fourth scene of our animation. Text overlay on screen. From South Africa to India, the fight for freedom continues. Upon returning to India, Mohandas noticed that his homeland was under the control of the British. He quickly realized that to free India, he had to win the hearts and minds of the people. To do this, he developed a unique approach called satyagraha, meaning truth force. Through satyagraha, he believed that truth and justice would ultimately triumph over oppression and hatred. In 1915, Mohandas co-founded the Indian National Congress and served as its president from 1920 to 1922. He urged people to join the non-cooperation movement, which included non-violent resistance against the British. The movement encouraged people to boycott British goods, refuse to pay taxes, and not cooperate with the government. But unfortunately, some people took violent actions, which went against Mohandas' principles. Although the movement was suspended, this experience helped Mohandas realize the importance of unity and discipline. Despite facing opposition, Mohandas kept fighting for India's freedom. In 1930, he led a famous march to the sea. The British had put high taxes on salt, which made it very expensive for people to buy. Mohandas wanted to show that making salt was everyone's right and not the government's. He and his followers walked over 240 miles to the sea, where they made their own salt. This peaceful protest showed the world that the Indian people were determined to be free. Although the Salt March didn't end well, Mohandas continued to lead movements to free India. During World War II, he pushed for India's independence and urged people to resist the British war effort. In 1942, he launched the Quit India movement. The British responded by arresting Mohandas and many of his followers. Despite being in prison, Mohandas continued to inspire people to keep fighting for freedom. And now it's time for the fifth scene of our animation. Text overlay on screen: The Price of Freedom. Finally, in 1947, the British left India. India became free, but unfortunately, this happiness didn't last long. Religious tensions flared up and violence broke out between Hindus and Muslims. As a Muslim, Mohandas feared for the safety of his Hindu friends, so he started praying for world peace. Sadly, his prayers were not answered. On January 30th, 1948, when he was on his way to his evening prayer, a Hindu extremist approached him and shot him 3 times. Mohandas was rushed to the hospital, but it was too late. He was dead. His last words were, "Hey Ram." Although his physical journey ended, his spirit continued to inspire people all over the world. He showed that one man can make a big difference, and that nonviolent resistance can help everyone live together in peace and harmony. And we have come to the last scene of our animation, the 6th scene. A text on screen with animated bell icon. Inspired by Gandhi. Want to learn more about history's great minds? Subscribe now and join our mission to spread wisdom, one story at a time. Many great leaders have followed in Mohandas' footsteps since he led India to independence. For example, The famous American activist Martin Luther King Jr. used nonviolent methods to fight for civil rights for African Americans. Nelson Mandela, the former president of South Africa, also used peaceful resistance to end apartheid in his country. Mohandas' ideas are still relevant today. They remind us that no matter how hard it may seem, one person can make a real difference in the world. All it takes is a little creativity, a lot of courage, and a belief in the power of peace. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button. And for more inspiring stories, subscribe to our channel. We've got lots more adventures waiting for you.